So, welcome back to another episode of Living the Sky Life. Today, I'm recording with someone I have not recorded with in a long time. I am so excited to have my friend Rachel back on. I was looking,
Hi.
I was telling her I was looking back, and you were on my show in January of 2020. And little
Oh,
did we know the world was going to shut down like months
yeah.
later after our
We
recording.
had no idea how crazy it was gonna be, and I look back and I'm like, "Gosh, so much has happened in 4 years."
I know it. Frankie was only 10 then. So let's update everybody. You don't have to go all the way back and diagnose us and all that stuff. I will post,
Uh-huh.
I think it was episode 14 maybe that you were on. So I can link
Okay.
up that if people want to hear like the backstory stuff. But so yeah, like what Frankie's almost 15 or is he
He'll
15?
be 15 in May.
Jeez Louise.
He's right at 6 foot tall, 212 pounds, of nothing but a grown ass man,
Oh
pretty
my
much.
gosh. Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
when we were talking before, I think was he at the autism center over in Louisville getting
Yeah,
ABA? Is he already?
BCA,
Yep.
yeah, Bluegrass Center for Autism, and he's still there
Okay.
since COVID, so since 2020, he has transitioned from the, campus for younger kids, to their second campus, which is for, um, preteens to they kinda move them up, um, based on their physical development and
Hmm.
kinda where they are as far as, their needs at the time, and Frankie moved up. He's been at Mid-City campus for 3 years,
Yep.
and honestly, which it's not a negative connotation for the younger campus, but he has made leaps and bounds
Oh,
of,
that's
like,
great.
just, so much progress since we've moved over to Mid-City because he's getting older, and he's like any other teenager. He
Yeah.
wants a little bit of independence. He, has is gaining skills that normal, shaving and the cutting of hair, which you and I both know that that is extremely difficult, and those are tasks that he has, I don't wanna say conquered, but, the cutting of the hair, he pretty much has conquered. He's doing excellent with it, as to where before it would take 4 people,
Hmm.
and, now he will sit in the chair and let them just give him a great buzz cut,
That's
and
awesome.
yeah, I mean, he doesn't enjoy it, but he sits there and he's very patient, and then after it's over, he loves it. He's going around and, like, wanting everybody to look at
Checking
his
himself out in
hair.
the mirror.
Yeah, looking at himself in the mirror and laughing, and then last year, they put in his programming to start working on shaving because we were there, as far as developmentally,
Uh-huh.
he needed to start to shave, and I would lay up at night, 3 and 4 years ago, well, even 2 years ago, like, thinking, "How are we gonna do this?"
Hmm.
"What are we gonna do?" And I have to say that he is doing so, so well. Um, he has one of his kind of program directors, his name is Steven, and Steven works with Frankie on like personal care issues, haircutting, shaving, and he has done excellent. And we're still working on the shaving, but he is tolerating it pretty good. And I'm hopeful that it continues.
Do they use an electric razor like
Yes,
off
electric
and then
razor.
just kind of let him hold it and just
Yeah,
slowly baby step into?
and at the beginning, what they basically did was just sit him in a chair and they would turn the razor on for like a few seconds at a time because it's not so much, I don't think it's even so much with Frankie the touch, the feel of it is the sound.
Mhm.
I think the sound is terrifying to him. And they would just turn the razor on and turn it off and increase, he got to where he could tolerate it being on for 30 seconds and they hadn't even moved to where they would, put it on his hair or press it up against his skin. Just gradually over, a couple of years, honestly, is how long it's taken, increased eventually to where, I guess you could say they've kind of desensitized him to the noise of the clippers and stuff.
I
So
love that about, like, the Mid-City program. Skylar was there for a few years too. Part of why he moved on is just because we know he's not large, he's not, tall like Frankie
yeah,
is, but he was so old. I mean, he was, I think, 12 or 13, and all the kids at the other campus, like you were talking about, were, like, 4 and 4 to 7, and he was, like,
uh-huh,
the mayor of that place. So
yeah,
they had to move him on, but I love that
uh-huh,
they used to have the apartment, like, they taught them how to make beds, the kids that were ready,
yeah.
and to how to put laundry in, and
That's it. Frankie has become a pro at hanging up clothes on
mhm,
hangers, which is a great skill to have in
it's
our
a tough
house.
task, I didn't like it.
Yeah, I have a teenage daughter that is 16, and so and a 6-year-old. We do lots of laundry around here. I feel like
Mhm,
that's my full-time job. And he's so funny because at school he does it without complaining or anything. But when you bring him home, it's like he's
I can't.
saying, "Mom, I don't, I'm not going to do this today."
Mhm,
But he will, like, if you ask him, like, Frankie, hang this up or go put this away. And he will do it, but he is like any other teenager. He doesn't really enjoy it.
yeah.
But
Well, when you
we're,
guys were on before too, he was only 10 and he
uh-huh.
wasn't really experiencing puberty yet, and people ask me all the time about Skylar and puberty. Honestly, it was so mild that the only way I knew that Skylar really went through puberty is the changes that I could see visibly in his body, and then when he laughed,
Mhm.
I heard his deep voice once, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, Lord." So we didn't really a lot of parents worry that they're just gonna have this, especially with sons, that they're gonna be punching
Oh,
holes
yeah.
in the walls and just be really
Puberty
crazy.
has been difficult for us.
Was it difficult for you?
Puberty,
Okay.
yes, and it still is. I mean, we're still kind of in the thick of it. Frankie went from only being medicated at night. He is on some medications because we went 2 years without anyone sleeping in this
Right.
household.
Mhm.
And so he takes medications at night to help him sleep. And but about probably about it's been about 3 years ago, we got to the point where he went through early puberty. I mean, by 11 years old, he was definitely starting to go through puberty. You could see the visible changes, hair and, I wouldn't say that his voice had changed at that point, but you could tell that we were starting to get a lot of acne and,
Mhm.
um, you know, body odor and all those great things. And so we knew that we were definitely starting puberty. And his aggression got pretty bad, to be honest.
Really?
And yeah, aggressive towards myself and my husband. And also, honestly, he had some times of aggression towards our girls. Um, and it was isolated in nature. It wasn't anything that was consistent. Um, but we while we love Frankie and we're loving him through these changes and everything else, we also come to the point where we realized we had to protect our girls
Mhm.
and make a change because um, it's not fair to them to um, be his punching bag at different times when he would throw a fit or just sensory overload, you name it. So there was a few isolated incidents where we're like, we have to do something. So
Mhm.
we got in touch with a really, really great psychiatrist through the Autism Center here in Louisville. Her name is Virginia Barbosa, and I cannot sing her praises enough. She's very good. She's conservative, but at the same time, she's also realistic as to, medications and changes, and, she has just, some of the medications that she started Frankie on really have changed our lives in some
Really?
ways. Yes. He, now, of course, with any medication comes side effects that
Mhm.
aren't nice. He takes clonidine, extended release. He takes it twice a day, once at night, once in the morning. Um, clonidine causes uh some like gynecomastia where,
Mhm. They
men can
develop
develop like breast
breast.
tissue.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We were worried
Um,
about that with risperidone too, and it never happened to Skylar,
yeah,
thankfully.
Frankie, he's a big dude anyway, and so, like, I really didn't see that. But he's also on aripiprazole or, Abilify,
Mhm.
and we started at a low dose, like, at 10 milligram and actually at 5 milligrams, and it was actually titrated up as high as 20 milligrams, kind of at the peak of puberty and, his aggressive phase and everything else. Now we have started to wean back down. We're on 15 milligrams, and that seems to be a really good spot for him. But the side effect with the aripiprazole is they want to eat all the time. I mean, we have had to um, basically build out a pantry that has a key code on it. And any kind of snack food, any kind of non-perishables is in that pantry and locked up. And it even got so bad that there was a time where he loves hamburgers. I mean, like, kid, I grill hamburgers and he'll eat four. I
Mhm.
mean, he is like, and no bun, nothing on him, just plain up hamburger. And one night, he actually had got up in the middle of the night, and I had hamburgers made out to grill the next day, and he actually ate raw hamburger meat.
Oh my
And,
god.
of course, I'm like, "Oh my goodness," and it didn't kill him. He was okay. But, that's kinda when we started to wean the aripiprazole down a little bit because his food cravings were just so, um intense,
Mhm.
and he just wanted to eat all the time, and I also think that he eats as kind of a nervous response at times. So, I mean, we've really had to lock up our food,
Mhm.
and that's not fun to do, and, you hate to I don't wanna say deny him, but, he was eating he wasn't hungry, he was just eating to eat,
Right.
and so, and yes, he is a growing boy. He's a grown man, going through puberty. Kids through puberty eat all the time. I mean,
Mhm.
that's kind of normal, but this was abnormal as much as he was trying to eat. And since he started the Abilify, he has gained 30 pounds. And so now it's like, yes, we have this medication that's helped us, and the aggression, we see it very rarely. But on the other hand, you have all these nasty side effects that you have to deal with, and just finding ways to keep him active and to try to control his diet as well as possible. I mean, they have their things of we love chicken nuggets, and
Mhm.
that's one of our things. um, Trying to introduce new foods into the diet or control the diet is super hard because they have what they like and
Mhm.
that's what they're going to eat. And if they don't get that, they don't want to eat anything.
Yeah.
So it's a fine line of, you know, trying to control their diet, but on the same token, you have to have these meds.
Mhm.
And I've never been one against meds, but up until that point, we really didn't have a need for the strong medications.
Yeah.
But it has made a world of difference, and they watch him very close. He has lab checks every 4 months, which those are not fun.
Right.
But they watch things like his liver enzymes, his hemoglobin A1C to see if he, is developing prediabetes, anything like that. They check his iron levels, vitamin D, all those things, and try to keep close tabs on all those things.
I agree with you. I'm a huge proponent of medicine when it gets to be I just don't understand us sacrificing, like, our entire household and, like, just trying to get through it. Sleepless
Yeah,
nights and
it's
the physical
impossible to try to
aggression
get
and the
through.
violence and I mean,
Yeah,
as long as you are seeing someone that is closely monitoring you and your child, I think it's such a huge benefit. There have been a lot of families that I've talked to that were just really anti-medicine. They just didn't really want to go down that road, and then they did because they just were, at a loss and nothing
yeah.
was getting better, and they were like, "Gosh, I kind of wish we had done this a couple years earlier," because
Yeah, I
it's
guess I
changed
have a
everything.
different yeah, I guess I have a different, take on medications and stuff
Mhm.
because my husband and I are both healthcare providers,
Right.
and so, I'm very much a proponent, if someone is suffering from another disease or disorder, you medicate them. If you have high blood pressure, you take medication. You do lifestyle changes to try to, mitigate it and improve it. But you take medication. If you have a heart dysrhythmia or anything like that, you take medication to treat that. So why is there such a negative connotation for people with mental health disorders?
Mhm.
That's something that I don't understand. Um, he has to have this medication in order to function, in order to sleep. And I am not against it. And
Mhm.
I will die on that hill
Yeah.
because
They
it
need
has,
help calming their mind and their bodies down because they can't do it
yeah,
on their own like us,
yeah.
you know?
It came to a point where it almost seemed like Frankie was miserable. And once we started the meds and started to see visible changes, he was happier. And I, anybody that's on that at that point where they're debating between the two, there is no shame in that game at all. And um it can help your child so
Mhm.
much. And not only your child, it can help you be able to cope with taking care of a child with severe needs and
Mhm.
the rest of your family. And, our kids are first, but all three of our kids are first.
Right.
And we had to take into consideration our girls as well during all of this
Mhm.
and do what was best for everyone.
Yep.
And I have no regrets in that at all.
Well, you shouldn't, and I think that's awesome. I mean, I'm sure your girls appreciate it too. I just know from
They
doing
do,
with
and they love
Kendall.
their brother.
Mhm.
They are the biggest proponents of him, and they are so good to him. And so when he would become aggressive with our youngest, who is in the first grade, she would not understand, why did Frankie, try to pull my hair? And, I was like, he's not, how do you explain that to a child that
And
young,
how do you not punish him or, like,
and
help him
how,
get
yes,
grounded and
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And then the last thing you want is CPS knocking on your door. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a real concern actually because, you know, as difficult as that is, I have to think about them
Mhm.
and their well-being as well as Frankie's. So, and he was being aggressive to himself. He was a lot of self-injurious behavior had increased. I mean, he has like a permanent bruise almost on his palm where he will bite it,
Mm.
if he's nervous about something. And that is something that has decreased, but it's still kind of there. You can still see the spot, where and, you know, I I don't want him to want to resort to hurting himself,
Mhm. Yeah.
So, it's
That's
been
painful
great.
to watch too. Remind me, is Frankie verbal or more verbal than he was when we last
No,
recorded,
not
or
really. We're not verbal really at all.
how does he communicate to you guys? Like,
So we have this accent device,
okay.
through school. We actually we are still not at the he's still not at the point where he can carry it around with him 24/7.
Mhm.
We're still kind of training on that with speech. Um, but he is making a lot of progress with it. But the thing about Frankie is, and I think that as parents, the longer that you're in this journey, you figure out, for the most part, you can figure out what your kid needs.
Mhm.
The majority of the time. There are times where you can't, but nonverbal cues, and I can just tell, by his mannerisms and a lot of times if he wants something, he'll take us to it, and so the communication barrier, why it is still there, I think that the older that he gets, that is something that has become easier. And I don't necessarily know if it's all just him being able to express his needs more as much as we're into this 14 years now and we're able to pick up on those things, the
Yeah.
nonverbal cues and
You guys just
things
have a system.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a system and I can't sit here and say like exactly what it is. We just know. I can tell by his tone of voice, like he doesn't talk, but I can tell by his tone of like his little yips and how happy he is, or if he's unhappy.
Hmm.
And the same with we just all had the flu and the stomach bug and strep all within the past month. And I knew when he didn't want to get out of bed one morning, he's always a morning person, always happy, always ready to go, going to get his backpack. He wants to go to school every day. He loves going. And when I knew that he didn't get out of bed that morning, I was like, he's sick. Something's wrong. He's sick. And, of course, we ruled out COVID and everything. And we did a flu test and found out that he had the flu. And, you know, it's funny how your child well enough I immediately knew when I walked in his room that morning that
Hmm.
something was up, you
Yeah.
know. Um, the bad part about that though is a lot of times you don't know what it is.
Right.
Something's wrong, but you don't know what it is. And that's kind of what we had been dealing with. He's had some health issues lately. And so trying to figure out what's going on um, was incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I want to talk about that too. That's kind of why I asked, I guess, about his communication because mother's intuition and gut, whatever.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, it's a real thing, and with
Sorry, I
all
gotta
the
take a
issues
drink of
that
my
we. No,
McDonald's
you're
Diet
fine.
Coke.
You're fine. All the things that I constantly talk about with Skylar and his GI disorder and his Crohn's and all the stuff. And we have a mutual friend. Shout out
Yes.
to Kim. And so
Uh-huh.
whenever, and Kim's my hairdresser and Rachel's best friend. But whenever I'm with Kim, I always ask about you and Frankie and what's going on. And she was telling me about some of the GI issues and the studies you guys are having done and all of this stuff. So
Yeah.
how
So we're
did
still
you figure that out? I mean, how did you even know, like, okay, I know your
well,
husband's
it
a
was
physician
kind
and
of
you're in the
yeah.
industry too, but it's like, how do you get to that? People always ask me that. How did you know Skylar's stomach hurt? How did you know all
Well,
this?
so it was like a culmination of things with us with Frankie. Um ab- about last year this time, he would start vomiting, and it would be random. It might be like 3 times a week,
Hmm.
but he would vomit, and sometimes it would be he would just vomit out of the blue. Other times, we would notice him gagging himself. And so, at the beginning, I thought it was more behavioral.
Hmm.
I thought and at times it was, and I still do believe that there is kind of a behavior component to it, but it seemed to be at times when we were asking him to do something that maybe he didn't wanna do, or we would say no, about he would wanna leave or go somewhere, and we would say no, and then the next thing we know, he would be vomiting. And, and also, he's on all of these medications that increases appetite and, overeating and things like that. We thought that that was kind of the causes of it. And not until probably so I would say these things started March of last year, and we kinda dealt with it. I guess good thing that I'm a nurse because cleaning up vomit and poop and all that kinda stuff
Yep.
is I guess I used to get paid for it. I don't now.
We should though.
Yeah, yeah, but that it's not necessarily something that bothers me. It does get old,
Hmm.
doing it all the time. Um, but then it started to increase, and it went from like 2 or 3 times a week to daily. And over the summer, we had taken a trip, and um, it was just miserable the whole time. He would vomit 2 or 3 times a day and even up to 5 times a day.
Mm.
It just started increasing, and at one point, I told my husband, I was like, we were trying to make a behavior plan on how to deal with it and everything, and I looked at my husband and I'm like, "You're a doctor, I'm a nurse, like, something's not right
Like,
here."
yeah.
People don't enjoy throwing up. It's not something that, people enjoy doing, and Frankie doesn't enjoy this, and we need to rule out if there is a something physiological that's
Mhm.
causing this or contributing to it. And so we kind of started the process of trying to figure that out. And nothing ever moves fast in healthcare ever. You get a referral to GI, which we had seen GI in the past for other issues. So we hadn't seen them in a couple of years, but we were already established in the system there locally at a local pediatric GI practice.
Mhm.
And we went in, and it was very disheartening. I felt like they didn't listen to me.
Mhm.
I felt like they did not take any of our concerns seriously. And, there is so much research and proven research that kids with autism are at a very great risk of having GI disorders. That's not something that's new. And I felt like they totally dismissed that. And basically their recommendations was, well, let's take a Prilosec every day.
Yeah.
And of course, I'd already been doing that.
Right.
I'd been giving him Prilosec and everything else, and to no avail. And so after I left that appointment, I kind of felt defeated, and I felt like we weren't being heard. And our pediatrician, he is very good, and he is always very thoughtful and careful with his care with Frankie. And, I spoke with him, and I just said, I really feel like we didn't have the best experience, and I really didn't feel like they heard us. And he said, let's go to Cincinnati.
Mhm.
And he referred us to Cincinnati Children's. And now it took a few months. I mean, our first consultation appointment with him was not until December. So, I mean, by the time we went through all of these channels, it was several months. And we went to Cincinnati December the 4th, and we saw a pediatric GI specialist. During this time, we had also got some labs on Frankie, and his liver enzymes were elevated, and they were elevated enough that there was a concern there. And so they sent us to Cincinnati, and they heard us. They listened. They were excellent from the moment we walked in the door. They took all of our concerns very seriously, and he's had a lot of diagnostic testing done. He's had an EGD, colonoscopy, all of those things, and he's been diagnosed with gastroparesis.
Mhm.
Basically, his stomach muscle does not work like ours, and he holds on to food a lot longer, and that has to be a miserable feeling. And I
Yeah,
feel
I
like
can
a lot of
imagine.
times, and only compounded by the fact that the side effect of the Abilify, the
Vilify.
Epinephrine, is that you want to eat, and so, he's eating and he's not, digesting his food appropriately, and then he makes himself throw up.
Is it
He
kind
makes
of
himself
like a
gag as a
non
relief.
it's not it's a non, self-induced, like, bulimia almost, right? Like,
Yes,
he's
it is.
binging
Now
and then
lucky
purging out
lucky
on
for
his own.
Frank, he's not, and he has lost some weight with it, but he's such a big dude. It's not like he's failure to thrive or anything. Like,
Right, like, God,
there
like, throwing up every day. Ugh.
yeah, and multiple times a day, in the car, at my parents' house, at our house, random, I mean, just vomiting.
Ugh.
And so, of course, then I had a lot of guilt with the fact that I didn't move on it sooner. Why didn't I
I
get
hear
this
you.
checked out sooner? But on the other hand, it's hard to discern what is a behavior and what is
Mhm.
when something is wrong.
I
And
totally get
that's
that.
where the communication part really stinks. Like I said, for the most part, we know what Frankie wants most of the time, but he couldn't tell me, "Mom, my belly hurts,
Mhm.
I feel bad." And so once we got that diagnosis, we started medication. First of all, he had lesions in his esophagus from vomiting so much.
Yeah.
So we had to do a couple weeks of a medication called Carafate, and Carafate basically coats and heals the esophagus. Um, and once we finished the Carafate, we started with He is on actually a low dose of erythromycin, which is an
Okay.
antibiotic.
Yeah.
In low doses, it stimulates the gastric muscle and the
Hmm.
stomach muscle. And so, you stay on it for 20 days, you break for 5 days, restart for 20 days. So he's been on that low dose of erythromycin. We just finished our first 5-day break, and we restarted it actually today. And I can already see a difference. Uh,
Wow.
our our instant from going to vomiting sometimes 3 or 4 times a day to we're seeing it maybe 3 or 4 times a week. And we've also made drastic changes to his diet
Hmm.
at home. Um, one of the things he loves the most is McDonald's chicken nuggets and Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets,
Hmm.
and, um, they upset his belly. When you're sitting with
Grease
that
and
on your gut
mhm.
for 18 hours or 24 hours,
Yeah.
it'll make you feel bad. So, do we deny him of those things completely? No, but we have moved from letting him have them on a daily basis to moderation quite a bit, and that's been difficult. That has been more difficult than the, um, starting the new medications and all of that is just, um, trying to make these small changes and accumulation of all of these changes, we have seen a difference. So I am hopeful with
Mhm.
medication management that we can handle this. Now, we still are not certain what is causing his liver enzymes to be elevated for a prolonged period of time. We don't know if that has to do with some of the medications that he's on.
Mhm.
He could have fatty liver disease. There's a lot of possibilities of what it could be. And he actually has a procedure next week. We're doing some liver function tests and um, ultrasounds and stuff. Those were scheduled a few weeks ago, but we had the flu and they had to
Mhm.
cancel. They had to move us back a few weeks. So, I don't know what they'll find out with that. I'm hopeful that it is something that you you hope it's something as small as just making medication changes, but
Mhm.
then on the other hand, you're like, "What we've got going on for us is working really good right now."
Yeah.
I hate to rock the boat. So, it's just a fine line that you always are walking. You find something that works and helps, and then you might have to change it because it's giving you problems in other areas.
Yeah. Are you
So
guys able to, one of the things I feel like I've gotten much, much better at the last 5, 6 years with Skylar is I've always talked to him and told him things that we're doing, but
uh-huh,
specific to like the stomach and having to change his diet and all of that. Now that he spells and I know that he understands everything I'm saying to him at the age level that he is,
uh-huh,
do you explain to Frankie like even though he can't directly communicate back to you, do you tell him like, "Buddy, these chicken
yeah, oh,
nuggets are
yeah,
making you
yeah,
hurt," and you can see that he gets it, right? I mean, he knows we're
uh-huh.
not just taking it away from him because he's being punished or anything.
No, I do think that he understands that
Mhm.
it's for his good. But I also think that there's still some pushback there too. And
It's his age, it's puberty too.
yeah, I think that's part of his age.
Mhm.
I think that Frankie understands a lot of everything that's going on around
Sure.
him. In
Mhm.
fact, I think that he knows pretty much everything that's going on. And I had a lot of mom guilt, and I talked to Frankie. I try to talk to Frankie just like I talk to my girls.
Yep.
Now, obviously, there's sometimes differences, and I have to catch myself on that and, like, really work on that because for a long time, I didn't think that he understood hardly anything that I said, and then
Yeah.
you get to the point where you're like, "Oh, I know that he's understanding what I'm saying, and I need to address him just like I address the girls."
Mhm.
And so I do try to talk to him. Frankie hates going to the doctor. It's not pleasant for anyone. Um, whether it's me and his dad taking him or my dad goes with us a lot. Um, we always have to have I can't take him by myself.
Yeah.
I can take him to his normal pediatrician by himself, but going to Cincinnati, we always my husband either has to, take off and go with us or my dad will go. Um, and it's not a pleasant experience for me. It's not a pleasant experience for my dad or for anyone involved. but he gets through it. And I tell him on the way, he knows exactly where we're going. When we get
Yep.
on 71, he knows we're going there. And he'll piss and moan in the car, half the way there. But I always tell him, I'm like, Bubby, we're doing this because we need to help you. We got to get your belly fixed. We've got to do all these things, and I know you don't want to go, but we've got to do this. And he will even shake his head, yes.
Mhm.
Like
Aw.
he knows, but
Yeah.
it's scary. I mean, he's always been terrified of hospitals and doctors, which I don't understand because his
He's
dad's a
surrounded
doctor
by it. Yeah.
and he's surrounded by it and he's grown up in that kind of environment. But
Mhm.
when it's, you know, eh, involving himself, he's
Sure.
terrified.
Yeah.
And we've done everything that we know to try to make that better. And it is better than it used to be, but it's still a struggle. And one of the things that I love about Cincinnati is they have a behavior team that basically from the time you walk through the door, they they're there. They meet you. And they have been just registration process and everything. They kind of streamline that. They know if you have a child that struggles with that kind of stuff.
They're
Sorry, still
That's
getting
okay.
over the flu.
They're not gonna make
Do
you,
every
yeah, sit there and fill out forms and stuff,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, they do everything they can to make it go quicker.
Mhm.
And, it doesn't give him time to get really worked up. I mean, from the time you walk in to the time you're in the room with a provider is a very short time.
Mhm.
So, it I like them for that, and I'm sure that there are other facilities that do those same things, but, I have just been highly impressed from minute 1 there,
Yeah.
and they have one of the best peds GI programs in the country. So, that's another, and the fact that it's just an hour and 20-minute drive,
Yeah.
um, you know, uh,
We're lucky to have it so close because the
we
sad
are.
thing is a lot of families from here are going to Cincy, so that's why the wait's so long because it's just
Yeah,
unfortunate, and I can empathize and
yeah.
completely relate to everything you said about your experience here, and it's sad to
I
me that we're
Yeah, and I'm
they're
not
treated.
bad-mouthing any of the doctors here necessarily. We've had some very good providers here locally,
Mhm.
but we've not as well.
Yep.
And so the thing is that sometimes you have to go outside of the box. And if I had to fly to California, well, in our case, we'd have to drive because Frankie doesn't fly. But if I had to drive to California to
Yeah.
get him the care that he needs, I would do it in a
We went to New
heartbeat.
York, I mean, and
Yeah, I
Texas,
mean,
and you have to, and
you
are
find
willing
out
to.
yeah, you find out the best place to go and you go.
Yep,
And I would recommend anybody do that for any of their health problems,
of course. Yep, our
look
kids are no
outside of
different.
your yeah, look outside of your local area because a lot of times you'll find if you have the resources and the means to do so, you will find the care that you need.
Mhm.
And I can't sing their praises enough. It's been a very good experience for us so far. And I will continue to be established there, I'm sure, from now on.
Yeah, well, I hope all of that continues to get better and we have more answers.
Yes.
Kind of along those lines, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about too is I know that you have been researching like adult options for Frankie, and I was just curious kind of when you started doing that, if it was 13, just this year, like, and what you're finding for him. I already know
Well,
the answer. It's kind of a loaded question because I live here,
yeah.
but
So I've just now recently started to delve into that.
mhm,
I think for the longest time, we really don't have a plan yet. We are just in the beginning phases of trying to figure out what we're going to do. Um, for the longest time, I just assumed Frank would be with us, until we could no longer take care of him. And, we would have a plan in place. But, you know, and that still might be the case. I'm not certain yet.
mhm,
Um, but with when he was having all of these health issues over the past year and just him getting bigger and going through puberty and a grown man, and I've had some health problems over the past 2 years, and, you know, my husband just turned 50, and you realize that there will come a point where you physically can't do this anymore.
Mhm.
And what do you do? Like, we have to be prepared. You know, we're just gonna be 15, but, you know, I mean, uh, time flies,
Yeah.
and before we know it, you know, we're gonna be an adult. And so, you know, um, you hear mixed bag reviews. There are some families that say, you know, that they have put their child into some kind of, you know, long-term placement once they
Mhm.
become an adult, and they do excellent and they love it and they have found their place and
Mhm.
they thrive. And then you hear horror stories,
Yeah. Yep.
you know, about terrible facilities and them being mistreated. And so, I've started to delve into it, and I have found that there really aren't many resources here locally. You know, you can go the group home method, and I feel like that's kind of a mixed bag. I feel like, um, you know, you find a great place and have a great placement, and you might not. And the other thing is that I want Frankie to be continually stimulated and to have activities and to have a schedule and to
Mhm.
because number 1, he won't do it. He won't sit down in front of a TV all day,
No.
but I don't want him to be, you know, basically medicated into catatonic phase and just them set him in front of a television all day.
Right.
Um, that's not what I want for him, and he'll lose everything that he's gained. I mean, you know that.
Mhm.
Um, so, finding a facility to meet all of those needs is pretty much impossible at this point.
Well, and
We have kind of looked into Cedar Lake,
Mhm.
and I have not been there for a visit yet. That is on my list of things to do. I would like to go visit, and then you also go into the cost, like, what is what is Medicaid gonna provide?
And what's the
What
wait
is
list even?
what is the way and the thing is that we have to get on this because these wait lists are 8 to 10 years long.
Right.
And at that point, we're gonna be 24 and 25, and my husband's gonna be 60, and I'm gonna be in my 50s, and, like, like I said, I don't know
Mhm.
at what point physically where my body will give out and I can't do this anymore.
That's
And
why I
so
just wondered if 15, like, because I think it was like we got Skylar's Crohn's diagnosis at 16, 15, 16, and then I don't know why it was that kind of hit me like, "Oh my God, like he's going to be 20 soon." I mean, he's going to be 21 next month. And I'm
yeah,
just like it was that point that I started researching, and for me it wasn't even having him live somewhere else cuz like you, I've always wanted him to stay with me as long as possible.
uh-huh,
It was my disappointment came from the programming at 22 and beyond, like day programs. There are
yeah,
none on our side of the river. There is nothing. I can't even get on
no,
a wait list because there aren't any wait lists, there aren't any programs. And I'm like Frankie, he will not sit home all day, and I'm not willing to sit home all day while he watches Elmo 24/7.
no.
I am very
But
vocal about that.
how many laps can you make around the neighborhood in a day?
No, I can't
How
do
many
it.
times can you go for a ride? I mean, Frankie's on this kick right now where he loves car rides.
So does
He wants to
Skylar.
go he wants to go on rides with the windows down and everything else. My husband at Christmas weekend put 400 miles on his car,
Sounds like
just
us.
driving.
We should take
Yes,
each other's kids because, Skylar
yes,
gets
just
bored in our
driving
car.
Frank around, and he loves it. Loves
Yeah.
that's their thing. They go to the gas station and get snacks that they
Mhm.
shouldn't have, and they go for long rides and
The boy time.
listen to their music,
Mhm.
and, you know, sometimes my husband will call me, and he'll be 2 hours away,
Mhm.
you know, and he'll be like, "We're just riding," and God love him. I'm so thankful that I'm married to a man that is so good that does that and realizes that, yeah, he's not out on the baseball field with his son, but that's their thing, that's their
Mhm.
time. But
Yep.
I'm like, when we're 65 and, you know, like, I don't know if we're gonna be able to do 2-hour rides every
Mhm.
day, and we're gonna be able to do 5 laps around the neighborhood and go to the Y pool 2 times a
Mhm.
day, you know? And so I programming is limited. My hope is that I feel like, you know, I think that the autism services, especially for children, are much better now than they were 15 years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Even when Frankie first got diagnosed, I mean, we've been on the officially diagnosed for 12 years now. I feel like there's so much more services now than even that were available to us when he was first diagnosed.
Mhm.
So I do think that at some point about 10 years ago, I do think that the medical community, legislators and stuff started to say, "Hey, we've got a problem here. We need to do something. We need to provide more
Early
programming.
intervention.
We
Yeah.
need to do the early intervention and everything else," which that is great. I'm glad that
Mhm.
they've done it. But at the same time, they failed to remember that these kids, the autism doesn't go away when they turn 18,
Right.
when they become an adult. And so now you have this group of kids that I feel like it was about 10, 12 years ago when they really started to push early intervention and all these things. Well, now this generation of kids are starting to age out of all of those
Right.
that programming and those things. And I feel like there is awareness, like, I think that they're realizing this, but there's no action yet. And so I'm hopeful within the next several years that there will be more programming available and more legislation geared towards that, because I feel like that happened, you know, when these kids were younger, and I do feel like that will happen, but I can't wait on that.
It's
And
just not a
so
priority. It just doesn't seem like a priority. I mean, I even
it
met with
doesn't seem like a priority, and
local people. I met with the local congressmen and women here, gave them copies of my book. I'm like, if you're gonna stand up there, picture my son then and the hundreds and millions like him. And
yes,
I'm like, and I wrote a bill for them. Like I brought out my old legal knowledge and I wrote a
uh-huh.
bill for them to implement, and then they were going to, and then they didn't because they said
Hey,
they
y'all,
only
thank you
are
for your
allowed
time.
they're like, we're only allowed to implement or to introduce a couple new bills each session, and these other ones kind of took priority. And I knew it. I mean, I'm just like, I handed it
Yeah.
to you on a platter.
We'll
I don't know what
spend
else.
millions of dollars on things that
Yeah.
don't matter,
Oh yeah.
but we won't take care of our most vulnerable population.
Hmm.
I cannot, I have been to Frankfurt a few times as well over here in Kentucky. I went a couple years ago because of the insurance thing. Anthem was all of a sudden just going to basically almost completely eliminate behavioral services, ABA services, and not cover them for their clients. And I went and sat through numerous sessions of listening to, you know, different committees and commissions, you know, testify on it and things like that. And, and it ended up and it paid off. They did not do what they had proposed to do, but we're back at the same point right now, basically, where Anthem has not increased their reimbursement for ABA therapy, which is the only thing that really has shown a lot of success in, back success in treating autism. And so they've not increased their reimbursement rates. And so, therefore, if you don't increase your reimbursement rates, facilities will drop you and
Or
businesses will,
you're out of pocket for the difference.
yeah,
Who can afford that?
you're considered out of network, and so because I get it, they have to pay their employees, they have to make money, they can't keep losing money, and so then, so we're back at square one basically with Anthem, and then, there is a House bill actually in Kentucky right now, House Bill 6, that is there's a lot of things in this bill, but one of the things in the bill is to increase, behavior services by 25%, the pay for, behavior health and behavior services, in the state of Kentucky, and, anyone who listens to this that is a Kentucky resident, please call your legislators and encourage them to vote for House Bill 6 because if they increase their reimbursement rates, that just means that you will have more providers and be able to care for more kids.
Mhm.
And, the wait lists are so long at facilities, there's not enough providers. And who you vote for matters. How you vote matters. Um, we can talk. I don't like to talk politics because a lot of people take it very personally.
And you lose
And
friends and family over it.
yeah, and I have people in my family that are on the total other spectrum of
Me too.
politics than I am, and I love them and they love me, and we don't discuss politics, or if we do, we discuss it on the means of we love each other and we won't let politics get in the way of our relationship or anything else. But I don't think that people realize that when they go to the voting booths and they vote for people, that you voting for eh, people, you need to know what they support and what their
Mhm.
agendas are,
Not
and
just the commercials.
yes, because how it those things directly impact families like ours. When they make budget cuts, who do you think that they cut first? They cut the most vulnerable of us all. It's kids like our kids
Mhm.
that get their services cut. We went through this year. Um, all of a sudden, the state of Kentucky denied Frankie is on the Michelle P waiver, which is a
Right.
wonderful program.
It is, now if you can get it.
Yes, when he got on the Michelle P waiver, he was 2 years old, and he was one of the youngest kids that ever got on the waiver.
There wasn't a
There was
wait
there
back
was
then.
not a wait list because it was a new program, and, and honestly, people didn't know about it. I only knew about it because I had a wonderful friend that was a special education teacher that said, "You need to apply for the Michelle P waiver." I did all the groundwork myself, looked all into everything myself, and we were very blessed and lucky that we got on the Michelle P waiver, and they provide wonderful services. A lot of our not all of our sitters, but some of our sitters have come through agencies through there, our ABA services. It has helped dramatically because the out of pocket costs, as well as I do, you could take out second mortgages and everything else. I mean,
Yep.
it can financially drain you. So we're very blessed to have that. But um, you know, there are a lot of states that don't even have close to what we have here in Kentucky, and Kentucky's still behind.
Mhm.
So who you vote for matters because they'll vote to pat each other's backs and give each other kickbacks on everything, but they'll cut from our kids.
Mhm.
And it burns my ass as a taxpayer to know that, I pay all this money in taxes, and I do that gratefully. I I want to pay my taxes and pay for the things that need to be taken care of, and I will pay that, and I know that those services go to help my child, but when they start cutting those services and giving
Nobody
money
bats
for
an eye at it or complains,
yeah,
except
and
us.
doing stupid things, they don't realize that that affects our day-to-day life.
Mhm.
You know, we got our ABA therapy cut in half. We were getting 10 behavior hours a week, and they cut it to 5. That 5 hours was huge. I mean, I cannot tell you how greatly that impacted us, and I was thankful for the 5 hours that we had,
Mhm.
but we had had the same schedule for 4 years, and when you cut that, it's people don't understand, I guess, until they live it, and there was no reason. They said, "Well, it was because he didn't meet a certain criteria," and we had to go through all these emergency appeal processes and had to have, you know, the psychiatrist and therapist and everybody else write letters to in order for him to get the services that he deserves and needs.
They try to
And
bury you in paperwork. They just assume that you're gonna go away, just like all the insurance appeals. I
oh,
can't tell
yeah.
you how many appeals letters I wrote to get coverage for things back in the day, and they just assume you're gonna just get frustrated and give up and just quit.
I wish they would just come live with us for a week.
They wouldn't. I mean,
No, they would quit.
I've said, "Why don't you come do a home visit? I would love to have you in my house, or I'll
Yes.
send you videos of my child." Like, on paper, he just doesn't seem like I mean, the common thing we always used to get was, when I got pushed back about his ABA center and stuff, and, "Well, why isn't he just in school?" I don't see any schooling on here, and I'm just
Yeah,
laughing like, "Okay, why don't you come here for 10 I'll give you 10 minutes." And
yeah,
you'll realize why he cannot sit in a classroom. If
yeah,
you're not
and
gonna
I
provide
have
the aid, so, I
yeah.
mean,
I still
they
have
don't
people
care.
ask me because the cost to go to BCA is very expensive.
Yeah, we
Um,
paid out of
and
pocket.
and we were out of pocket for a long time. Now
Mm,
we do insurance does pay for a portion of our tuition, but they don't cover it all, and it's a lot. I could have already sent a kid to college for 4 years and a graduate degree, basically,
mhm,
to cover what I have paid in tuition over, the span of Frankie's life. I am very fortunate that we are able to do that.
mhm.
Most families aren't. And so, and it hinders us in, the lifestyle that we live, even though that we have great income and things like that. We have to be very careful because our expenses are so great just with his care. And people will ask me, "Well, why don't you put him in public school?" And I'm like, "Do you ever watch the news around here?" Number
Yeah,
1, my kids live in a very large urban school district, and both of my girls go to public school, and so far, with their education-wise, we have had a great experience. But our school system can't even get the kids to school on time,
God.
and the buses.
Yes.
But we have days where buses don't, show up. Um, my youngest daughter, we have just resigned to be a car rider, and, they have basically told us that there will be no transportation next year for her school. And so, which I'm able to take her back and forth to school. I can do that, and I will. Um, but do you think I'm gonna put my special needs child on a bus until 8 and 9 o'clock at night when some of these kids are getting home from school?
Yeah. No,
No.
it's just not
And
realistic.
and that's just the
Traumatizing.
bus. That's
Yeah.
not talking about having an aide with them 24/7, safety issues and everything else, and besides, the programming is not geared to his needs.
Mm-mm.
So, for us, public school was never an option with
Us either.
Frankie and
Mhm.
never will be an option with Frankie. And, and I'm fortunate that I can say that and be okay with that, and I know that that's not everyone's circumstances. But, I just don't understand, people are so blind to, "You just put them in public school."
Mhm.
You try it when you have a kid that can't come home and tell you if anybody's being mean to them or not, or, I mean, it's just asinine to me that people just don't understand.
Can
Not
Frankie can he stay at BCA till 22 or after
so
22 or
actually, they have just, they're launching a kind of like a capital campaign. They have had space donated to them to open, another campus,
Mhm,
and it is gonna be in the Fern Creek area,
mhm,
and they were actually getting ready to start construction, and they're hoping to have it up and running by next year this time. And basically, it is for, um, I don't necessarily wanna say that they've put an age on when
yeah,
that program will start, but it's more, adult-oriented programming,
mhm,
probably 18 and over, um, and they're gonna have partnerships with many of the businesses in the area, and if so if the learner is not appropriate for some kind of, work co-op, which there's, I'm hoping maybe eventually Frankie will be appropriate for some kind of work co-op, and it's usually just a 2 hours a day, and he would have someone with him the entire time.
right,
And it may be just hanging clothes on hangers for the thrift shop next
mhm,
door or something like that. Something to give him purpose, feel like he's contributing and doing something. Um, but so, they are gonna have programming, I think, for kids that aren't at that level or who never will quite be at that level.
mhm,
It's still in the early phases, but I am hopeful that, that is a place where Frankie can continue to grow and
that'd be
thrive
great,
and stay and have a place where has a sense of belonging. He loves his school.
and has
And
friends, you know?
he does, he has friends.
Mhm,
He loves his instructors, and they are so good to him.
yeah,
And so my hope is that as long as we can afford it, and as long as, even if insurance doesn't cover part of it, Frankie will be there as long as they want him, and as long as we can afford to send him there, he will be there. Um, I don't know as far as when he's an adult, housing and things like that. Obviously, the financial part of it is a big concern, and just the safety portion of it. Um, there will be a time, I think, where we eventually will have to put him in some kind of long-term placement. I don't know if that's at 25 or at 35 or whatever. I want to do it before something were to happen to me or my
Mhm.
husband. So I know that he is adjusted and that he's doing well and that he is in a good place where he's thriving.
Mhm.
And, my girls, my oldest, Olivia, is 16. I know you have a daughter that's a freshman in college. You know, I have talked to her some about, there'll be a day where dad and I are no longer able to care for Frankie. And I said, I don't expect you to put your life on hold to care for your brother, but I do expect you to make sure that he's okay
Mhm.
and to make sure that he's being treated well and to manage his care, and those types of things and act as a guardian at some point and in your life. Um, she knows that, and she has accepted that role graciously. She has said to me, "Mom, I wouldn't want anybody else to do it." And so and I'm so glad that she has her little sister, eventually she'll be an adult and they can do it together. Um, and like I said, I don't expect them to move Frankie in their home with them or
Yeah.
anything like that, but if he's in the hospital, they're the ones I want there with him, or if he's, on Christmas Day, they're the ones that I want to go see him or bring him to their house for the day or whatever,
Mhm.
you know, and uh, I feel like my girls are totally up for that task, and that when that time comes, whether it's 20 years from now, 30 years from now, whatever, that they will do that not only because they feel that that's their duty, but they'll do that because it's their brother and they love him.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so, um, yeah, but that's a lot. It's a lot, and
A
it
lot
it would
on you and your husband to think about too. And I just, at this point, I just kind of keep thinking like, I'll just keep researching, I'll keep planning, and I'll, get him on lists and I'll do all that I have to do. And that makes me feel better that I'm doing something. It's,
yeah,
for years I just kind of I'm like, well, I need to really do something because he's gonna be an adult soon. It's hard not to bury your head in the sand, but you just don't know. Tomorrow's never promised. So that's kind of been my
no,
whole take on it too, is I just wanna find some options so that I can get him in a comfortable place in a day
and
program
that he's
place, and I
okay.
know he's okay, and I can check on him, and he knows that he's okay. Like, I don't ever want him to think that we just couldn't take it anymore and couldn't handle it, so we just gave up,
No,
because
it's in
that would be the
preparation for
death of
their
me.
future. Yeah,
Yes.
it's in preparation for their future, and the thing
Yeah.
is that I'm hopeful that he'll be at a place where that Frankie will love it and
Mhm.
love the environment that he's in and feel, at home and at ease and like he is a place where he is loved and appreciated. And I do believe places like that do exist,
Yeah.
but there's not enough of them.
No.
And so, you know, I I don't know what the future holds, and it is terrifying. Um, 2 years ago, which I don't necessarily know if we've talked about this,
I know what you're gonna say.
my appendix ruptured.
Mhm.
I was just having some minor back pain, and it continued for about 3 days, and I was like, I didn't feel bad, but I was like, I probably should get this checked out because my nurse brain was like, "What if it is your appendix? You probably should get it rolled out." So I drove myself to the emergency room
Typical
after
you.
everyone was in bed. I waited and got everyone in bed. Everyone packed up for school in the morning, all that kind of stuff. And I go and wake my husband up, and I'm like, I'm gonna go get that checked out in my back at the ER, and I'll call you if I need you, but I'll be home in a few hours. And my CT come back, and they were like, It's definitely your appendix." They couldn't tell at that time whether it had ruptured or not. But so I went into the OR. I'm calling my husband and my parents.
It's
The
scary.
immediate thought when you have something wrong with you isn't what's going on with you and yourself. It's like, okay, I have to do this, this, and this to make sure that Frankie is okay, and that the girls get back and forth to school, and that Frankie gets back and forth to school, and
That's just yep.
who's going to be there to it's line up his sitters. I was at 4 a.m. texting on my phone in the emergency room, making sure that my sitters were lined up for the next few days, because I knew that I was going to be in the hospital.
Yep.
And calling my mom and dad and waking them up. And I'm like, I need you to go over to my house so my husband can come here and be here before I go to the ER or to the OR. And so, you're not sitting there thinking, well, I hope this all works out okay for me. You're thinking about everybody else
Yeah.
and so when I come out of the OR and I woke up in recovery, a nurse that I had worked with for several years was my a recovery room nurse. And when I woke up, you're first waking up out of anesthesia and you're groggy and stuff. And I was like, everything go okay? And she's like, well, you had perfed and there was an abscess. She goes, but they got it all. And, so immediately I start feeling on my abdomen, because I'm like, well, they've opened me. There's no way they did this laparoscopically. And, I'm feeling around for drains and everything else, because I'm like, abscess, I'm gonna have
Mhm.
drains, and there's none of that. And I was like, well, maybe I'm just, and then I fall back asleep. And I wake up a little bit later, and my husband is with me, and they were moving me to a room and stuff. And I said, "Did they open me?" And he said, "No." And I said, "I'm in trouble." And I could tell by looking at his face and mine that we both, and I guess it's each surgeon's call on what you do. But I know from working in the ICU that we get bad bellies from people that have ruptured appendix, where they don't open them and they don't place them on drains and they don't keep them in the hospital for 10 days on IV antibiotics. And so immediately I thought, this is not going to turn out good. So I went back. My recovery was terrible. I was in the hospital for about 4 days, and I felt worse than when I came in. And I just kept on saying, something is not right. Something's not right. And of course, they're like, well, they did a lot of work. You had this abscess and everything. And I was discharged home, and I cried the whole way home, because I still
You're
knew
gonna
that
end up right back there.
yeah, and within 12 hours, I had a fever of 104, and my husband took me back, and I was admitted and I had surgery the very next day to remove a large tubal ovarian abscess, and it had wrapped around my fallopian tubes and my right ovary. And when I signed the consent for the surgery, basically it was a consent for a hysterectomy and everything, which I was okay with at that point. I'm done having children. I knew that, and everything. And I'm just like, get it out, get everything out that you need to. And then after I woke up from the second surgery, come to find out they had only removed my right fallopian tube and my right ovary and had cleaned me out, still didn't place a drain. And, I spent about another week in the hospital. And long story short, I came home for 48 hours and was back. And when I went back, the abscess was even larger. There was the tons of I had developed peritonitis, which is basically an infection of your entire abdominal cavity. They placed drains. I was seen by infectious disease. I was in the hospital for 8 days. I went home after 8 days on IV antibiotics for 2 months. Um, and during that time period, I had two other hospitalizations. And finally, we moved to a different hospital, into a different provider. and immediately, I ended up with a complete hysterectomy overnight, both of my ovaries, everything gone because everything that abscess had touched had infected my entire abdomen.
Ah,
And I spent the majority of 3 months, basically from April until August, either in the hospital or at home with home health on IV antibiotics. And it was at that time I knew, as a nurse, I kept thinking, if I don't start getting better, I was within a hair of going in full blown septic shock. I mean, I was very sick. And I knew that if I don't get better, if I don't start getting better, this could get bad.
mhm,
And, when you're laying in a hospital bed and you aren't even strong enough to get out of the bed, and your mind just I think that at that point, I thought, "There's who's gonna take care of the kid?" You're thinking about all
mhm,
these things, and it was kind of at that point 2 years ago where I thought, whether or not it's this time or down the road, there's gonna be a time where I'm not gonna be able to take care of Frankie, and what are we gonna do? So that's kinda when the wheels started turning that we had to have a plan. And luckily, I have recovered. I'm doing well, but it was, almost a year of recovering, and I still have long-term, permanent damage from that. I've got scar tissue wrapped around my bowel and things like that, and those are things that could cause me problems in the future. It might not. It's just like, something that you never know. And so it's scary. It's scary to think about your own mortality. And, I'm not I know where my heart is with Jesus. I'm not afraid about me, but
yeah,
who's going to take care of my people? And, uh, I know my girls can care for themselves, but Frankie can't,
yeah.
and so, um, I don't want Frankie to be the guy that's in the nursing home or the extended care facility on Christmas and there's nobody there,
No, I know, and when we hear those
or
horror
be in the hospital,
mhm,
and there's nobody there to hold his hand.
I know.
So, I'm thankful. I know my girls will be there, but you think about those things, and those thoughts are terrifying when
They
you
are
have a child
terrifying.
that
That's what
will.
keeps people up at night, and that's why
Yeah,
we can never just people are like, "Just don't worry about it," or "They'll be fine," and, I mean, that's
you
nice,
can't not
but
worry
that
about it.
doesn't reassure me because I
No.
the worst thing that would happen is that I leave Josh to fend for Skylar on his own, and even worse than that is if I'm alive still, but I'm, like, incapacitated and, in a vegetative state or something happens to me, well,
Yeah.
he has to take care of me and Skylar. I mean, I can't even fathom that, so I just want it to work out
Yes, and
so
the thing
badly.
is, I have a great village, and I know that you don't have family close, and
Mhm,
I feel for you because I feel like that has to be incredibly difficult, Lori. I am at, my husband has his brother and my sister-in-law here in town, and they're great. My parents, are godsend, my
mhm,
mom and dad. But my parents are aging. I mean,
yeah,
my dad is retiring next week, and he's 68 years old, and my mom's gonna be 67, and, although they're in great shape, you're never guaranteed, time. I mean, most of my grandparents died in their early 70s, and, my my dad's family does not have a track record for being long livers, and, my parents help out as much as they can, um, but I can't, continue to expect that from them.
mhm,
They will do everything that they can, but there'll be a point where they physically can't help as much as they do,
mhm,
and, my brothers are amazing, and my sister-in-laws, um, I've got aunts, uncles, cousins, you name it. I have a village that surrounds me. They love us, they support us. Even if they can't, even if they don't know necessarily what to do for Frankie, they take my girls
mhm,
and they'll take my girls and do things with them and experiences with them that they might not get to do otherwise.
mhm.
So we have an army around us that loves us and loves on us as a family. Um, and I know that I'll always have that, even when I'm dead and gone. That's how we work. That's how our family works. That's how I'm training my girls to work, and that will continue. But I feel so bad for people that don't have that because I don't know where we'd be if we didn't have it, to be
Mhm.
honest. And I guess we'd still be standing, but it'd be a hell of a lot harder.
Yep. It makes you really have to lean on each other and make your marriage work because if you don't
Well,
have each
yeah,
other, then you
that's
got
another
nothing.
thing. Like people talk about, the divorce rates on with, people that have special needs children and how high the divorce rates are. My husband is amazing. He works 12, 14-hour days every day, on call every other or every third weekend, you know, um, but it's ingrained in him, I guess, in the profession that we're both in of caring for others, and always putting other people before yourself. That's just the kind of man that he is. That's one of the reasons I fell in love with him. But you know, I I can see how marriages would fall apart. I'm fortunate that it has made our marriage stronger. I
Mhm.
feel like we are a much more united front, and we divide and conquer. It doesn't give us much time for ourselves
Mhm.
ever, but we make it work.
Mhm.
And we're not I always say in parenting, I just try for mediocrity. I'm not gonna get any Mother of the Year awards or anything else, but I'm like, if we're mediocre and we're sticking through and we're getting this stuff done, then that's okay. I'm okay
Try to
with
keep
being
everybody alive. That's my goal.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
keep everybody alive.
yep. Oh,
But
Lord.
we just
Well,
back in last month my husband turned 50, and for the first time since we've had kids in 16 years, we went on a trip together.
yeah, I saw your
And
pictures.
we have done, like, a weekend here and there over the past 16 years, maybe I think maybe 2 weekends in 16 years. But my parents graciously offered to come and stay at our house with the kids, for a week and well, basically 6 days, and we went to Belize with my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, and it was amazing. It was wonderful. It was harder to get ready for the trip because, lining up all your sitters and who's getting who to practice and picking up from school and all of that. Now, I was exhausted when we got on the plane that morning from having everybody's clothes laid out, everybody, Frankie's schedule and Frankie's meds. And, I'm like, you take this med at this time, and having them all in their little containers. But it was such a refreshing recharge
Mhm.
for us just to not have to think about the things that you have to do every day and not thinking about who's gonna wash all the sheets today and change the bed this morning and just to lay in the bed in the morning and not have to worry about, like, getting Frank up and getting him showered and starting the sheets in the washer because he pisses the bed every night and,
Us
uh
too.
yeah, and mopping the floor because he pees on the floor too at night,
Mhm.
and getting that, all of those things. I came back and I felt recharged and and it was just 6 days did that, recharged and ready for whatever fresh hell set around the corner, which was strep and flu and the
Mhm.
stomach bug twice in the past 6 weeks, but, we're still standing.
Still thriving,
Yeah.
kicking. Oh gosh. Well, let's see. I don't want to end on like a sad note, like when we were talking about like, housing and stuff like that. But let's see. I mean, I guess just what I would say is just everything that you are doing, you always compliment your husband and being amazing and I'm the same way with Josh and that he works such long hours and all of that and then takes Frankie for drives and
Comes home and
stuff
goes
on the
right into
weekend.
dad mode.
What's that?
Comes home and goes right into dad
So
mode
does
without
Josh.
just doesn't even eat,
Yeah.
just goes right into it.
The one thing though that that I never used to say about myself, and I'm finally making myself say that is I'm amazing too, and we allow them to be amazing because we are amazing at home. Like we're
Uh-huh.
taking care of all of the washing of the bed sheets every morning and all of those things. If we weren't such a great team, this wouldn't work.
No,
It's
it's a
very
full-time
easy to be
job.
resentful and like, well, I have to do I make all of his food and
Uh-huh.
I pack his lunches every morning or every night.
Yeah.
And I get his meds out and I do all of these things and I work too and Josh works
Uh-huh.
too. But I'm not mad about that. Like
No,
if he
no,
didn't come home
never.
and take over, he just looks at me and I'm like, I'm tapping out. Like
Yeah,
I'm
you
done.
we call 'em union breaks at our house.
I know.
I'm
We should
like,
have a
"I need a
union.
union break," and he realizes that when I say that, it means that I need about 30 minutes to just do whatever, either leave or,
Mhm.
just go to the bathroom by myself or go
Right.
take a shower or whatever. I need to tap out for a few minutes, and he gets it, and
Yep.
and he'll do the same with me. He'll be like, "I'm taking a union break,"
Yeah.
and we allow each other those things.
So,
I
well,
think it's
I was just gonna say, I think that, like, I guess for me, just to kind of wrap up our discussion about, future and adult living and all of those things, I now have a different perspective just from talking to so many incredible parents on this podcast who have placed their children, adult children, in group homes or whatever the situation is that's worked out and how well they're doing and how much they're thriving. It's the other side of it too. Like I want to make sure Skylar has a great life, but I want Josh and I also to have a great life. And
yeah,
it's not that I resent Skylar or that I'm upset that I've had to wash his bed sheets for 20 years, 21 years, and all of these things. It's just that we're better people and better parents if we get a break. And I think he needs a break from us. Seeing
yeah, I
Kendall thrive
definitely
at
feel that.
college and being on her own and doing her own things, making her own decisions, she's loving life. I just want to give Skylar that chance too, because I don't know
Uh-huh,
that he can be 100% himself and really grow if he's always under my watch. Like, me
yeah,
feeding him. I'm sure I'm babying him more than he probably likes.
uh-huh.
Who
I
knows if
agree with that.
his behaviors will switch. I don't know what the future holds for him, but I do think it's going to be better for all of us when he as an adult has a little bit of a life of his own.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think so too. Part of me is anxious for that phase of my life. I guess I'm in a little different phase because I do have a first grader. And
yes.
so even whatever we do with Frankie, my husband's still the 50-year-old dad in the first grade. So we've got a while before we can even like think about that type of thing. I don't know. I guess he'll slow down at some point. I don't ever see my husband giving up his work
Yeah.
completely because I think I gave up my career 6 years ago, because it was what was best needed for our family. I loved being a nurse. Absolutely loved it. I loved the people I worked with. I worked very hard to become a nurse. That caregiver mentality was in me well before
Mhm.
I ever had Frankie. That's kinda who when God made me, that was, I guess, one of
That was the
the
plan.
things that was one of the things that he ingrained in me
Mhm.
was service for others and physically caring for others, doing sometimes the jobs that a lot of people don't want to do. That doesn't bother me. I enjoy helping and caring for people. Um, it's hard when you do it 24/7,
Mhm.
uh, and you don't have a break from that. Um, but I gave up my career, and did I wanna do that? No. I didn't want to give up my career. I did not I never thought of myself as being the mom that was gonna be a stay-at-home mom. And I actually just had this discussion with my teenage daughter because she's, you know, planning out her future and, she wants to go into the medical field, whether it be nursing or, medicine, and she said to me, "Mom, what you do is really hard, and I don't want I wanna have a family, but I don't wanna really be a stay-at-home mom." And she goes, "But can I do both?" And I said, "You can, and you can rock both." It's not easy as a woman in this world to do both, but there are plenty of successful women that are wonderful mothers, and they make it work. They probably don't sleep very much and everything else, but so I gave up a career that I loved to stay home with my family because that was what was needed. I don't regret that decision. Do I wish I didn't have to make that decision? Yes.
Mhm.
I wish I didn't have to, but I don't regret it because it has been where I have been needed, and honestly, it's where I will be needed for the foreseeable future.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't there's always been parts of me that thinks that, later on in life that my husband and I might do not only take time for ourselves, but do stuff together professionally.
That'd
You
be
know,
cool.
get into like I worked with him some in the past, and he's great at what he does, and we do make a pretty good team, even, outside of the home. I've kind of thought about that, doing some kind of mission work.
Mhm.
We've always talked about wanting to volunteer our time and do something like that, so that might be an option for the future. Um, I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for us, but I do know that whatever it is, we're gonna enjoy it.
Mhm.
I mean, whether we're working, whether we're and I know that wherever Frankie is, I'm gonna be next door.
Yep.
And I'm gonna be going over to see him every day.
It's probably gonna be like,
That's not
"Mom, stop
y
visiting me so much.
yeah,
Leave me
that's
alone."
not gonna change. He'll never be to where I can't see him every day,
Yeah.
ever, but, and, I look forward to a time where I can really pour myself into my girls
Mhm.
as well. 'Cause I
Yeah.
feel like even though I feel like we do as best a job of it as we can, um, I wanna be able to pour into them in their futures as well,
Mhm.
and, I'm looking forward to being able to really, give them sometimes the attention that I don't think that they have been given.
Yeah.
And, whether that be helping them in their adulthood, being a stay-at-home granny or whatever, but supporting them and loving on them, um, and giving them what they rightfully deserve as well, and giving
Mhm.
them that love and care.
Well, you're a great mom, you're a great
Oh,
friend,
thank
you're a
you. So
great
are you.
spouse, I'm sure. I'm not married to you, but I've heard great things. And I mean, Frankie is so lucky to have you. And I mean, it's no pressure to like prepare all the future things. It's just, I just highly encourage people to be thinking about it because we just never know. I mean, we could have this great plan in
No.
place and then it all falls through and then they figure
Yeah,
out
and
something
like I
else.
said,
I just
I had
don't ever
never
want to be
really
caught off guard. And I would just highly recommend
no,
people aren't caught off guard because that's a whole mess
no.
of problems for everyone.
No, I never really like I said, I mean, I had thought about it, but not really in depth until I was faced with the reality of my
Yeah.
health and the fact that I'm not gonna be able to do this forever
That's enough to scare you.
physically.
For
Yeah, it scares
sure.
the crap out of you,
Yeah.
and so I do think that that is incredibly important, and I really wish I was talking actually to some other parents, at Frankie's school at BCA, and some of the program directors there recently. I would love to form some kind of group, here locally, um, for people that are kind of in our boat at this stage of life, whether you have teenagers or even young adults. Like there needs to be a group of people coming together and pulling the resources together and who we know and sometimes it's not what you know but who you know
Mhm.
and developing some kind of like with the Michelle P waiver and with Medicaid waivers and everything else. I don't even know all of the benefits because you go to one person and they say one thing, and you go to another social worker and they say another thing. And so, it's like it we need a roadmap. At this age, you need to start doing this and you need
Mhm.
to start preparing for this and having contacts and support groups and resources at these stages and what can we do better do we all need to band together and figure this out and form some kind of almost like a roadmap
Mhm.
because
Never had
there
one.
No, we didn't. We've not had a roadmap,
No.
Lori. I mean, we've had to figure it, and God bless the parents that were come before us, even, because they didn't have any resources to work with. And so it's like we 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 need to come together and figure out it almost like a manual, a guidebook. Like, okay, at this stage, you need to be preparing for this, this, and this. But the thing is that it's subjective to where you live and to what states and what insurances you have and this and that. But gosh, that would be so helpful for so many people.
It would
How do
be.
we do that? I don't know. Any of these people listening, like, how do we do that? How do we band together and figure this out? Because even if it doesn't help us, if we can help people 10 years down the road and kind of pave a way, for this next generation of kids that are going to age out into adulthood and give them some kind of direction. I think it's up to us
Mhm.
because we can't depend on the government or our legislatures or
Nope.
anything
It's up to
to do
us
it.
that who have no time and no energy and whatever. We're supposed to build all this stuff and create all this stuff, but that's just how it's always been. You
Yeah.
know, I just
The last thing I want to say again, and I said this before, is like who you vote for matters.
Mhm.
It's a big election year. Um, Not only like the presidential election and everything else, but local elections,
Mhm.
your state representatives more than anything, because the legislation that they pass or don't pass, the bills that they have affect families like ours every day. And there are so many things that we base our political alliances on and our vote on that are moot points,
They're all big
basically.
things that
They're
don't
they're
affect us
big things
directly.
that everybody will
Yeah.
argue about from now until the end of time. Things like this matter.
You need to
Things
check
like
the
this.
voting history of the people who you're voting for. That's the big
Yes.
thing. Because if they tell you one thing, but you look at their voting past and they vote nay on everything that matters to us, then that's not somebody I want to vote for because they're never going to be in my corner. They've proven it.
No, no,
So,
and we have a whole generation of children that are gonna be adults soon that what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And
mhm,
it's not gonna get any better. It's not gonna get any better. These numbers are just gonna grow.
right.
And so it is going to become an epidemic of its own. And it is extremely important to quit arguing about the things that everybody's going to argue about from now on and at least come together on some things
Mhm.
that can really make a difference. So
You're so right.
check, yes, check out your local people that are running for office. See where they stand on funding for Medicaid and ABA therapy programs and reimbursement and things like that. Look into those things because those things are so important and they affect our daily lives. They affect families like ours daily lives every single day.
Mhm. You are right about that. Gosh, it was so good to chat with you. We
Yes,
need
you
like 6
too.
more hours, but, I'm
Oh,
glad
I gotta
Frankie's
go set in the hour-long carpool line.
I'm glad Frankie's doing better, and I really appreciate you taking the time, your very busy schedule to chat with me and to be on the podcast again,
Thank you,
so
Lori, and
good
thank you
seeing
for
you.
doing this.
Of
Thank you for doing
course.
this and being a voice. I like to talk, I like to write and everything else, but I don't have the confidence to like put it all out there.
You should, because 'cause you're hilarious, for one thing.
Oh,
Love reading
well,
your blogs.
well, we can get more into that later.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
All right, thank you too, Lori. Bye.